Welcome back, friends. Thanks for being here. This is Steve, KM9G, and I am going to be doing a couple of videos on DMR, and I'm going to be recruiting in a bunch of help from a couple of friends. This is the first video in the series. First video is going to go over why DMR. Why would you want it? And we've got TheSmokinApe, and we've got Ham Radio 2.0, Jason, and we have Sean from Ham Radio Dude. All of their channels will be linked down below. And after that one's done, then we're going to go over what radio you would want to use, what radio we'd want to use, and what some of the features are of that. And then I'll show you how to get your DMR ID and your Brandmeister ID, get your accounts all set up. Then we will go over getting a hotspot, what you need to do to get the hotspot configured on your Wi-Fi, and how to get Pi-Star set up. And then we'll go into programming a radio, and maybe we'll make a few contacts. Stick around. Oh, and this thing right here really helps. Thank you. All right, I'm Steve. You already know that, KM9G. And with me, I've got Ham Radio Dude. Go for it.
Hey, I'm Ham Radio Dude, W9FFF. That's all I got.
That's all it takes. And if you're not subscribed to Ham Radio Dude's channel, there will be a link down below to get over there and get after that after this video. We're busy right now. I've also got TheSmokinApe with me.
Hello, hello.
What's your call sign, Ape?
I'm taking the test next week, so check back in with me. And
what's your score on Ham Study?
I'm right around 40% right now, but
you got
yeah, I still got a little bit to go.
Yeah. All right. Well, good luck with that. Let me know when you schedule it. I'll be there. I'll be your VE.
Perfect. That's what I was hoping for. A little inside help. You know what I'm saying?
Long drive from Wisconsin to Nebraska.
It sure is.
By way of Alabama and Pennsylvania. Yeah, and then also we have Jason from Ham Radio 2.0. Jason.
That is me. Good evening, Steve. Thanks for inviting me. Should be a fun talk, I think.
It should be. And with that, I'm going to let Jason get started because Jason likes to talk, in case you hadn't ever watched any of his videos.
I'm not sure how to take that.
Clearly positive. Much love. Nothing but love from the YouTubers bunch. All right, Jason. So the topic here is why DMR, and what do you like about DMR? Why do you think it's a good thing?
Well, you know what? I was thinking about that earlier today, and this is not a question that I have been, this is definitely a question I've been asked before. This is not a new question to me, is what I was trying to say. You know, there's a lot of reasons, and I think the one that I would pick to be one of the top reasons is because of the open source aspect of it. The reason you have so many manufacturers making DMR radios, and I've given a presentation at several ham fests here locally. I did it at Orlando Hamcation once or twice. Just, you know, kind of like a DMR 101 intro to DMR. I did it on my channel even one time in the live stream. And at the end of that presentation, I have a slide with a list of all these company names who make DMR radios, which is actually about 2 years old now, but there's like 41 names on the list. So I'm sure it's expanded between now and then when I first made that slide. But the great thing about DMR is that it's an open source standard that was ratified in Europe back in 2005, I think it was, if I remember correctly. And as long as you meet certain requirements, you know, anybody can use the code, anybody can use the codec, anybody can use the DVSI chip that's made, and they can make a DMR radio to within the specified parameters, and you can sell it commercially, and it's used in the commercial world, it's used in the amateur world, it's used in the professional world. There are some police and fire departments that use it as well because it's a much cheaper alternative than P25. So the thing I like about it is that and you know, with the open source aspect, it becomes, for lack of a better term, hackable. So there's different things that Motorola has built.
Hackable as in make it better, not hackable as in break in and steal the world.
Right. Yeah. To expand on what it currently does, to add certain aspects to that wasn't originally designed to do, to make it. Somebody's at my door. But that's the thing, you know. Yaesu came up with System Fusion, which works fine. Icon bought into D-Star a while back, which was a droll creation. Actually, System Fusion was also a JARL creation.
So say that again.
JARL, Japan Amateur Radio League.
Okay. I thought you were saying
JARL.
DROLL. I'm like, really?
Oh, no.
We don't want to talk bad about anybody.
The SmokinApe would probably pronounce it that way, but
Yeah,
JARL.
well, he was using Texas. I would say Droll.
JARL.
Oh, see, I would have got that right away.
JARL from Krypton.
It's super.
So, you know, and these were modes specifically made for amateur radio. D-Star and Fusion were. DMR was not made for amateur radio, but just like FM radio wasn't made for amateur radio, and AM and CW Morse code wasn't originally made for amateur radio. So,
no, we're amateurs. We just take it all.
We just take it, and in a lot of ways we make it better. So it's been expanded upon, and the features that allow you to do that are the open source aspect of it to a certain degree. So that's one reason that I like it.
Excellent. And Sean, you go next.
I got to agree with the whole open source communication thing. I mean, it gives the ability for amateur radio operators on a budget to get into the digital game. You know, you sit here and you look at some systems where you got to get a radio that's at least $170, and then right now you get a cheap Baofeng for $50. It gets you on digital.
What model's that?
This is the DM1801, which is hackable.
You can't put a radio on camera and not say what it is.
Oh, well, I was going to make him guess, you know.
Comment below if he's wrong.
Right. But, you know, yeah, then you got the hackable part. So it allows people to get in there and not just see what they could do, but really better these radios for amateur radio. Because if you recall, just a few years ago when these were coming out, they were, for lack of better terms, they were garbage. You know, and so that's really nice. It's good to get that ability, but you also have that ability for the channel spacing. And of course, the coolest thing though is there's more than 6,000 repeaters worldwide with DMR capabilities, and it just gives you that opportunity to get out there and talk to somebody. And I know a lot of people frown upon the whole over the internet talking, but
yeah.
if I want to speak to one of my old friends in Arizona or one of my military buddies around the world, it's cool. I have a hotspot. I can hop on and we could just chat. You know, and there's plenty of reasons to love DMR for sure.
Yeah, so that radio you picked up, is that the OpenGD77? Is that the hackable you're talking about, or is that a different model?
Yeah, these are all OpenGD77 here, and they're all hacked with it. And they were this is the GD77 itself, and these are DM18s or 1801s, and you could definitely tell they're pretty much the same radio. But what I will say is they were garbage until, for lack of better terms, they just didn't have the support that they needed until Roger Melbourne actually started the hacking project and got everything taken care of.
Yeah.
And again, there's another reason to love DMR radio, and that is because it's used by public service. And what happens with all the radios after a few years, right? They phase them out, and then you get to go on government auctions or to Hamfest, and you find them everywhere. And again, relatively inexpensive.
You pick up 100-pack for $100.
Oh yeah, something like that, right?
If they don't just give them to you for free for like, get these things out of here.
Right. And, you know, that's pretty much, you know, a lot of my reasons for liking it. And it seems like there's a stronger presence on the DMR networks as opposed to, say, I don't know, Fusion. But I don't have a problem with Fusion. It just seems like if you want to talk to somebody, you're going to have a better chance with D-Star, in my opinion, or DMR, in my opinion.
All right. Ape, you're up. What's next?
You know, when I'm talking, I want it to be more conversational, so feel free to chime in, anybody. What I'll say, though, is that one of the challenges with DMR is the proliferation of all these companies making the radios. So when you talk on DMR, you hear a very wide variety of signal quality. Also, there's a lot of issues with people having their mic gain set correctly. When you're on something like a Yaesu or D-Star, it sounds good. Everybody sounds good. With a properly adjusted DMR radio, you can sound good too. But when you start looking at some of the cheaper alternatives, they're a little bit more difficult to configure, and then you have a little bit more challenge in your signal quality. I was a ham for, I want to say, around 3 or 4 years.
Before you lost your license, it expired?
Right.
Yeah, before it expired. And before I had got into DMR. Now, before I was a ham, I had actually bought a PRS GRE 500, which is a P25 digital trunking scanner. So I was pretty familiar with digital modes and program the radios and how they worked. but I just was more of like a 2 meter, 70 centimeter repeater guy. I was prepping is kind of what got me into radio, and I was more into short range tactical communications with my buddies. And that's kind of got with me in the ham. But when this radio was announced, this is the iLoons HD1. I really considered getting into DMR because I thought it was cool. When I had seen the other radios before that, I know it might upset some folks, like the TYT or the MD380 and stuff like that. They didn't seem like quality radios to me. I'm a Baofeng owner, right? So I bought radios that were not of a significant quality. Not that Baofengs are bad, but with those other DMR radios, I just didn't bite. I didn't think it was something I wanted to do. And I want to say it was Thanksgiving of 2018, and I really, really was hoping that this radio was going to be a Black Friday deal, and it didn't happen. And I had investigated the radio quite a bit, and I found some people reported a couple issues with it and stuff, and so I did a video called "Which DMR Radio Should I Buy?" and that led me to the BTEC DMR 6X2, which I love. This is one of my favorite ham radio purchases I've ever made. And after buying that, I really started to get more and more into ham. Like I'd always thought about getting a general license and stuff like that, but it wasn't until I got into DMR. And then what I like specifically about the protocol is that one, it's digital and it uses the TDMA protocol, which is a 12.5 kilohertz wide band, as opposed to FM, which is 25. So when you talk about signal quality, it's a lighter weight signal. It requires less power from your radio, and with it being binary or digital, the sound quality is a lot better than analog with the sine wave, and you pick up all kinds of noise and interference. So in my experience, digital signals can go a lot further, but when they tail off quick. Analog, typically, you can still kind of hear or make out what you're getting. And I've been using, I was joking around, I think on one of your chats, Tio, that I installed Slackware in 96.
Yep.
And so I've always kind of played around with Linux, and I really like the idea of the Raspberry Pi hotspot and building one of those. I think one of the biggest misnomers around the digital radios or DMR radios is that it's an internet protocol and it's talking
Internet only. Yeah. It's not.
I think
Sean,
Jason, Jason, watch one of your videos. I really learned a lot about people who have DMR repeaters that are not internet connected. I believe that you actually have a network down there that is connected, but it's not connected to the network. I might be wrong about that.
They're internet connected, but they're not connected to Brandmeister.
Gotcha.
So it's its own independent standalone network, but it is over the internet still.
You got to. Oh, sorry. Go ahead. My apologies.
No, that's okay. What Sean was saying earlier about people kind of thumbs down to the whole internet connected thing, which is true. That's totally true. You know, the same thing's true for, when people start to talk about DMR as, oh, well, you have to have internet. Well, first of all, no, you don't have to have internet. Number one, that's just wrong. Number two, the same thing is true for Fusion, D-Star, and All-Star and Echolink. You don't have to have internet to use analog. You can internet connect analog repeaters over All-Star and Echolink. And you don't have to have internet to use DMR or Fusion or D-Star. You can do simplex. And let me tell you something. If you guys have never done DMR simplex from a mobile station or a base station even, with like a 40-watt radio, I'm not talking about an HT. Put up an antenna in your vehicle, or put up a base station antenna. Put a 40-watt radio, Connect Systems, TYT, MD9600, whatever, and do some range testing on DMR simplex. You will be surprised how far it goes. The first time we did that out here, I was like, wow, why do we even use repeaters? This is awesome. I mean, you can cover almost the entire metroplex of Dallas-Fort Worth with DMR simplex, and it's fun to use, and it works really well. And
sounds great.
And it sounds really good. Yes. And now that the more videos I do about DMR on YouTube, people are like, well, I don't like using the internet. I'm working on some simplex videos now just to say, okay, here we go. We don't have to use the internet today. So,
well, 2E0 UKH digital analog ham Chris, I call him Euro Chris. he, I think, made like a close to 1,000-mile contact
Yeah.
on DMR simplex,
Mhm.
which really speaks to what I was talking about earlier, the lighter band and just the binary capability of the signal. So I was really a big fan into that, and just being candid about it, it really made my interest in ham radio grow quite a bit.
Mm.
So, I'm a big fan. I think DMR is cool. I like the fact that I can fire up a Raspberry Pi that I paid $50 for the parts and built a hotspot.
Yeah.
And I can talk to anyone. And I'm not like, hey, I'm DXing, bro. I'm DXing, bro. I understand what's doing the heavy lifting there.
What logging software do you use for your DMR contacts?
I don't log pretty
Would,
much anything, but I was on DMR the other night and some guy is like, hey, do you mind if I are you good on QRZ, bro? Because I want to log this as a, work Nebraska. And I'm like, I was like,
Right.
I'm not, I'm not trying to be uncool, but I'm not going to do that. I don't, I've never logged UHF, VHF.
No.
I've
good
logged
contact.
some simplex VHF
I
Well,
think if it's
sure.
a meaningful
or
contact,
sideband. There's a really cool 2-meter sideband net that goes on Wednesdays here in North Texas. I've logged some of those
Yeah.
contacts, but
That's how we POTA. We bring 11 hams with us to a park and just go around a circle.
clean it up.
That's
Done.
nothing wrong with that.
There you go.
Log all of those contacts.
But
Hey.
I really think the digital modes are the future of ham radio.
They have to be.
Yeah,
For sure.
And then when people start talking about internet ham and all that stuff, it's really ignorance that's driven by fear of change.
When was the last time you built your own car before you went to the grocery store?
Right.
Well, I mean, why are you going to the grocery store? Aren't you out back slaughtering a chicken?
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, I am.
Hey, I will say one thing about the internet that is actually a benefit for some people. Okay, I live in an area where we don't have any like APRS. I'm losing the word here. Digipeters.
Digipeters.
There you go.
iGate,
And-
Digipeater.
iGate, yeah.
And the thing is I have plenty of DMR in the area, and so all of a sudden here I am, and maybe I need to get that DMR location or my APRS location out. I'm able to do that through internet linking with
Mhm.
DMR. So it could possibly save your life if you really think about it.
It's true.
Well,
Yeah, I mean,
think
it's
when-
kind of weird the different ham radio tools that have saved people's lives before. I mean, somebody
Oh, sure.
used WinLink on a sinking ship to get rescued.
Wow.
I mean, let me whip out my computer and send an email from my laptop over my ham radio while I'm drowning.
I
mean,
think he didn't make it. I think the other people made it, but the WinLink operator, I could be wrong, but I think the WinLink operator didn't make it.
I'm
Quick
gonna have to
moment
look
of
up that
silence.
story.
Yeah.
But I just think the whole aspect of it is cool. And like I said, when you start to talk about crowded bands and the need to shrink and get better usage or utilization out of those bands, I mean, there's a reason why businesses switched to DMR, not just encryption, right? It was because of bandwidth, right? And that to me, that was one of the biggest drivers behind D-Star DMR and Yaesu System Fusion. How they come up with the with the amount of bandwidth that they use is different. Like TDMA, I believe they were targeting even less than 12 and a half. It was 6 point whatever that comes out
Well,
to be
it's
2.5.
with TDMA, since it's dual time slot, it's 2 time slots at 6.25. So the total
Right,
bandwidth
right.
is 12 and a half. Same is true for System Fusion, actually. System Fusion uses 6.25 kilohertz for the voice and 6.25 kilohertz for the data that it transmits. That's why you can always see the other station's location, GPS location. If you switch to VW mode, that is voice wide, and
Right.
it uses the entire 12.5 kilohertz bandwidth just for your voice. It turns off the data.
Yeah, so I think the
similar.
protocol actually requires that you're 625.
Yes,
yeah,
I believe
but
so.
but the way that you get to that is there's some funny math there.
Time
Yeah.
slots. and all
Yeah.
that.
Well, it's like with business radios, right? Like when I first started at my job, we had Motorola radios that we used to use to communicate to different people in different buildings. And
That was the cement mixer job, or that was the?
it was the cement mixer
okay.
job. And we were using actually my first real job. I was a pizza delivery man, and we all had CBs. But
Awesome.
I
There you
think
go.
that they went to narrow FM at some point in there, and then all our radios became obsolete. We had to buy new radios because it was bandwidth preservation and utilization.
Excellent. Yeah. So my story, I guess it's my turn now. We have a huge tower in the area that was abandoned by the county, probably 20 or 30 years ago. I mean, it's a 200-foot tall tower. And it's been abandoned for so long. Its maintenance records are out of touch for so long. They gave us the ability to get on it, and we built a repeater system with it. And, you know, we get a lot of winds up here. We had a tornado, 2 tornadoes last year. We get what's called straight line winds. So just no apparent reason whatsoever. 50-mile-an-hour wind comes through and it's gone. And like, what happened? Half the trees in your yard are down. So, you know, legitimate need for emergency. And now we've got this 200-foot tall tower that's got a deaf antenna on the top of it, and we can't climb it. We can't fix it. And I'm real close to the St. Croix River, and the St. Croix River just cut straight down. I mean, there's a definite elevation change going down to cross the river to get into Minnesota, and then going back up to get back out. And so, you know, we just lost half of our ability to talk to half of our club, because some of them are literally below ground level from where I'm at my elevation. And the easier solution was DMR repeaters and hotspots and, you know, 40-watt mobile rigs and all that kind of jazz, and solves the problem. So I'm relatively new to it, but so far it's pretty easy just to, you know, hold down a button and punch in a DMR ID and talk to somebody if you know who they are, or join a talk group. And, you know, you've got talk groups for RVs, for ATVs, for drone pilots, for every state in the country, for every country in the world. You know, every hilltop. I mean, there's probably one for POTA. There's probably one for SOTA. You can do POTA and SOTA activations with it if you've got the ability to, you know, standard UHF, VHF stuff. Chris Claiborne, N1CLC, did a SOTA, not a SOTA activation, but a mountaintop DMR simplex non-internet connection. And
he's got the 878, right?
I think so. Yeah. So that's where it comes in for me. That's one of the reasons why I like it. And I've only got one radio so far, but one of the other guys in the club went out and got everything, and he's even got an RD5R, and I just think that's hilarious. I need to get at least 5 of those now.
That RD5R though, that's single time slot, right, Jason?
I think that they tried to do it. Is it the RD5R or the DM5R?
The RD5R is the UV5R exact. I mean, you pull the battery off of one and stick it on the other, and
I think it was I think it was the previous model to that, the DM5R, if I recall correctly. And it wasn't really single time slot. I mean, I guess it kind of was, but they advertised as dual time slot, but it would puke all over the other time slot when you keyed up. So,
of course,
yeah. I don't think that one's made anymore. I think the RD5R does not have that problem, if I remember correctly.
Yeah, I think you're correct. It was like 3 years ago or so,
right?
When they came out with it, and it just was a big failure.
Yeah. They stopped making it because too many people complained about it, I believe.
For sure.
Yeah, when that came out, I was like, "Oh, I'm going to get into this DMR stuff," and it was confusing at first, because I remember thinking that I could just use an analog radio with a hotspot, and I was like, "Oh, if I buy this hotspot," and then you had to learn about the ambient coder and all that other stuff.
Still get that question.
Yeah.
Well, and we talk about DMR and why it's great, but I think personally one of the reasons people don't get into DMR, and it's really not that hard of a thing to get into, but code plugs and writing a code plug. Now, I DMR is great, but I think it discourages people, and I probably just let you know that there's plenty of videos out there that'll show you how to make a code plug and how to do it simple.
Yeah,
for sure.
Yeah, so we've actually, Ape and I have a friend who's working on a code plug building website where you just go in and you put in the important stuff about you, your DMR ID, what type of radio you have, what your frequency of your hotspot is. And I'm not sure, is there anything else, Ape, that you put in on your own to personalize for yourself?
I don't think so. I think that's it. And then
and
you'll be able to download.
He's got a real slick talk group set up for his. Really organized well.
There's a place that does that already. I think it's Ham Digital.
Okay.
Well, that gives you I think it's called digitalid.net.
I remember there's one that does that where you can go in and put in your own info and then download a code plug. I used it once. It worked well, but it was overseas, so it didn't have a lot of the information in it that I wanted. But I always thought that was a cool idea to be able to do.
Absolutely.
So you don't have to let.
Yeah, I don't get the whole intimidation factor. Around the code plugs building. It really doesn't seem that difficult. Now, one thing I'll say is that like I tested and did videos on lots of different DMR radios. not the program software is not the same. Even if you go like Retevis is the brand that I always talk about. Like you can have 5 different Retevis radios, and they all require their own version of a code plug or CPS, computer software.
CPS, yeah,
Sure.
And that sucks. It
It
definitely
does.
sucks that
Yeah,
you can't
for
do
sure.
That's a
something like
design
Chirp.
fail right there.
the best general rule these days, Retevis falls into this. It's Retevis, not Retevis. Retevis falls into
Retevis.
this, and TYT, Anytone, several others. I don't remember if they ever actually did the HD1. If you're looking at buying a radio, get something that's supported by the N0 GSG contact manager, because you can take a code plug from one of those radios and pipe it into like a dozen different other radios. So I highly, when people ask me that question, well, should I choose this or this or this? I was like, all of those are supported by N0 GSG. So get the one that looks best to you or that you want to spend money on.
Yeah, I agree with you, but that also adds a second piece of software to the equation, right?
Yes and no, because
you got to you got to import it into
sort
that tool.
of, but you can, yeah, I mean, but okay, so presumably you're getting, if you're a new ham and you're getting in DMR, someone has told you about it. Okay, so you've got a buddy that's into it, or you got some family that's into it, and they already have a radio. You're like, well,
effect.
I don't have a radio they have. I want to buy this other radio that's newer and has all these features. If they're both supported by N0 GSG, then your friend or family member can send you their code plug. You can pipe it through N0 GSG, put it into the CPS for your radio and shoot it in there. You're done. So that's,
Totally
I mean, again, it depends on what you're trying to do. That's what I always say that on all of my videos. It depends on what you're trying to do.
It's like lesson 6. You'll get there.
It's kind of one of those things though too, where like maybe you'll use that software. Eventually you're going to need to figure out how to like manipulate things or work around things, and but at least it gets you in the door to DMR, right?
Well, the first time, the way I learned to build a code plug was my first ever Motorola radio was a Motorola XPR 4350, which was the 40-watt version of the mobile radio that just had the dual display on it. It had the 10 or 0102 all the way through 16. Had 16-channel radio. That's all it was, or maybe 32. But I had a friend who was a Motorola guy, and he shot a code plug into it for me from one of his Motorola's. I went home and bought the Motorola software and downloaded the code plug, and I just looked at it, and I'm like, okay, I understand this and this and this. I don't know what this is. And I emailed him and said, hey, I'm looking at the code plug. What does this mean? Oh, that means the time slot means the dual time slot. And I already knew what the time slots were. But I learned how to build a code plug by looking at an existing code plug. I didn't just magically learn, or read a book or something. YouTube wasn't as big on code plugs.
Jason's mad reverse engineering skills.
But yeah, I mean, Oh yeah.
We all have an IT background, right? Like I watched a video. I can't remember the ham's name, and I really feel bad about that. But there's a guy that wrote a manual for DMR, and you can get it off of dmark.net's website. And I want to say it's ham radio now.
Perhaps if we had some vast repository of knowledge that was searchable.
Yeah,
ham radio now was Gary.
Yeah, so it was a video that Gary posted when he went, and it had this guy that just talked about the DMR for an hour and a half and explained it in a way that it just totally made sense. Mm-hmm. And so when I bought the BTEC, I just downloaded the software and hammered out a code plug. It was actually, granted, I had, I would say, moderate experience programming radios and have an IT background, so there's a little bit of an unfair advantage, I guess. But it really wasn't that bad at all.
So Ape, when you do Zoom meetings for work, do you use this background and SmokinApe on there, or do you?
I have by accident, and but I don't normally. But what's really funny is that when COVID hit, I have a like-minded friend that was out in Arizona, and he called me up and he says, "Hey man, can I ask you a question?" I was like, "What?" And he goes, "Are you the SmokinApe?" And I was like, "No, I've never heard of him."
No.
Who are you talking about?
And he said, "Come on, man, I know that's you, bro." And I was like, "Yeah, that's me." But now a lot of folks at work.
This just in: SmokinApe has friends.
Well, I'll call them acquaintances. I'll call them people that I talk to somewhat socially every now and then. But when COVID hit, a lot of people, a shocking amount of people that I know, ran out and bought Baofeng radios.
Oh,
and then just through watching YouTube videos, I guess they found me, and so I get a lot of questions about that.
You know what's really funny, when COVID hit, the Logitech mice sold
My
out.
keyboards.
Oh,
like my
it was
keyboard broke. I
everything.
couldn't get a new
Webcams.
keyboard.
Webcams.
The microphones,
Yeah.
the webcams, especially, Jason. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
These,
I just wasn't expecting mice. Like, how do you not have a mouse on a computer at
I
home?
know it. Yeah. Yeah.
These C922s were like sold out everywhere.
Yeah.
and
That's what I've got. I've got one of those
man.
under the screen right here. And,
Oh,
and my,
it's horrible.
my nephew was starting to do gaming videos on YouTube. I'm like, go buy this camera. And he's like, dude, they're out of it and on Amazon. I'm like, no, they're not.
Yeah,
Come on.
right.
And I looked at Amazon. Holy crap. Yes, they are. Wow.
Well, they had a Chinese knockoff version that was being sold on Amazon that was of the 922. So I've got two of them. I bought one before, well before COVID, and I paid like $70 for it. And
Yeah.
then I bought one about a month and a half ago when they started to stock them again. And I paid like 110, 115 bucks
Yeah.
for it.
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
they know. They'll mark you up too.
Right.
But yeah, I mean, well, look at like Yaesu radios, the FT65 and the FT4X, and I don't want to get too far off topic, but those have been sold out for months, right?
Yeah.
And
Oh, if you
now-
get too far off topic, I'll just edit it out.
perfect. Well,
Be
I
this
mean,
black spot over there where Sean's supposed to be.
exactly perfect. Like just audio silence. Play some music over here or something. But where was? Oh yeah, now they were having such a problem producing them and getting them out to the U.S. They're making them in Japan now. Now there might be something to do with the trade and everything like that too, and the cost of making them out there. But they're making them in Japan now too, and they're shipping them out. So yeah, you saw that with everything really. Toilet paper, electronics, wherever it goes.
Mhm.
But I think that's probably a fair point too. Like if you're using DMR and everybody went out and bought these analog Baofeng radios, maybe you want to have a digital way of communicating with certain people where not everybody on those analog radios that just bought them are going to be able to hear you.
Yeah.
And I know we're not encrypted and everything like
We're
that.
elite.
But, right. It's kind of nice to have a little bit of sense of security as you're not everybody's hearing what you're saying.
I just want to say I'm a ham radio operator. I am a licensed ham radio operator, and when COVID hit, I did not run out of toilet paper.
I'd agree with that. In fact, I was giving it out. I mean,
Yeah.
people would call me, be like, "You got any?" I'm like, "Yeah, come on over, man."
Can't spare a
Oh my
square.
God. I had so much toilet
Yes,
paper, you wouldn't believe it. And literally almost a room full. And people would call me up and ask for it. I'm like, bro, I told you to buy that stuff. I told you. I was
But
like,
I'd be
I ain't giving you nothing.
I'd be giving them the Home Depot toilet paper, and I'd be keeping the good stuff.
The one ply, yeah.
Right,
you get
right.
you get the Scots.
Sorry, this is all I got.
It was funny because my boss at work was even like, I'm having trouble finding toilet paper. I'm like, well, just go into work, man. They got these giant rolls of them. In the back.
Two ply is for general and up. You're
Right.
just a tech. One ply. Sorry.
Right.
That's how we do rations and ham radio, huh?
Yeah.
I actually took the 2-ply and separated it just because that's how
To double
evil I
down.
am. Yeah.
Well, Ape is still studying for his test, so what does he get?
Right. I had to fend for myself. I used the
It's a sock.
Pinecone.
HRO catalog.
Yeah, whatever you got, man.
Whatever it takes. All right. So, Jason, you're the only one that didn't have a radio handy, and I was going to do this whole impromptu, like, hey, let's talk to each other over DMR thing, but Ape hasn't passed his test yet. I don't know what to do, man.
Well,
Yeah.
what's funny is that Jason, you always have a DMR on you there with the RF Finder, don't you?
Yeah, I haven't been carrying that the last couple of weeks, but yes, generally yes.
So is that on connected? Like, are you DMR'd up? Like if somebody hit you, because the other day I was like, I should just hit Jason and see what he does. I didn't know if you'd be on or not. So like, that's what I'm asking. Because you have it as your phone. My phone's right here.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, I mean, it kind of depends on what talk group I'm on because I flop around a lot. And if I'm on our Texas network, then you can't get to me anyway, generally.
but if it's network connected, can I hit you with a private call?
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, you could do that. Yeah, that's true. So, we got Frank got his hotspot up and running. So we've been talking on the R Finder talk group here recently, which is talk group 31770. So if you guys don't have that one programmed in, hit that up because I've been monitoring that one for like the last week. I've been off and on in that one for a couple months now, but I've been really monitoring it for the last week or so because Frank got his hotspot running. So he and I talk.
He's on 24/7 right now, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, we found out the other day that you can take a DMR ID and use it as if it was its own talk group, and everybody else
Yes.
who is
Yeah.
monitoring that ID as a talk group will be on it. So
Yes.
my club got a club call, W9WAR, and then we went out and got our own DMR ID for the club call, and we don't even have the repeater set up yet, and we're good to go over hotspots. So
Yep.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah, you can definitely do that.
all right,
Yeah,
gentlemen, I
I
think we have.
You know,
I saw that they were Brandmeister was encouraging that because so many people were requesting talk groups,
Right.
and the talk group would get used really a lot for about a week, right?
Right.
And then all of a sudden now they've got a stale talk group sitting out there that
Right.
nobody was using.
Mm-hmm.
you know, and if you're working just between hotspots and you do that, it's kind of nice because, yeah, I guess, again, you kind of have a sense of security, and I know it's not completely secure or whatever, but it's if you're trying to maintain some kind of communication that's not as active as others, there you go, especially on, you know, hotspot where, you know, it's you could be 400 milliwatts on a hotspot and you're not you're not blasting all over town and stuff like that too. But, you know, actually, if you don't mind, I want to pose a quick question to you all. So you have all these radios. We already talked about kind of like the things you might want to look for in a radio or whatever. What would you guys recommend?
I mind.
Oh, dang. All right. Well, have a good one, guys.
Thanks, Sean. Thanks for being here.
I appreciate it. That's all I got. But I mean, like, what would you guys recommend as your go-to DMR radio for a beginner? Some guy who's just getting in the game and he wants to get a DMR radio. I mean, that's a loaded question, and I know it is.
Yeah,
But-
so I'm gonna take Ape's side. I'm gonna go with the 6X2.
Yeah, I would say that the 6X2 is not only the radio that I would recommend for somebody getting into DMR, but if somebody was serious about getting into ham radio, it's a fantastic analog radio as well.
It's a great starter, yeah.
What I say is if I woke up tomorrow and all my radios were gone, the first one I would buy would be a 6X2.
Very nice. Does that have APRS?
Well, so the thing is, a lot of
Kinda.
these DMR folks will say that they have APRS, but it's really beaconing. It's
Sure.
not full functionality APRS. Like if you're serious about APRS, you need to get the Kenwood. What is it? The D4? Is that Jason? Is that the Kenwood
D74.
D74?
The Yaesu FT3D.
Yeah,
About
but the D
$150 cheaper gets done.
But they're not DMR radios.
Yeah, right.
Yeah,
but
neither
the
one of
but yeah, the D74 is D-Star, but the D74 is the premier APRS radio. So like when you watch any of the the guys who are really into APRS, they're using the D74.
Yeah.
The second thing would be as Jason recommended, the FT3DR would be the other one. Outside
sure.
of that, get a cable and then use a TNC or
Gotcha.
Droid
Yeah, for
APRS.
sure.
Does the 6X2 have Bluetooth now?
It does not.
Okay.
Which is like one of the big things that people will say when you talk about the X2 versus the Anytone.
Mm-hmm.
The main reason when I bought the X2, the 878 wasn't out. It was the 868 was the radio.
Right.
And when I looked at it, it was $40 cheaper, and it came with a second battery.
Right.
And to me, that was really a no brainer.
Oh,
And
but
it has a couple of
the clip screws onto the battery, Jason. So
Yeah,
sorry.
I know.
yeah.
No, I know. I've only got 4 of them, so.
Jason's
Yeah.
pet peeve.
But what the heck? What was I getting ready to say? There's the X2 has a couple of extra features, like it has a forward repeater, and I've never used that, and it has the ability to record. The 878s or the Anytones don't, but you really can't go wrong with any of those.
Yeah.
But like it's funny because I'll be on, was it 3100, and people are like, "What kind of radio you running, son?" And I'll tell them, "Hey, it's a BTEC," and they're like, "Oh, you got one of them Baofeng. You got that Baofeng DMR." And I'm like, "It's an Anytone." And they're like, "BTEC, boy, BTEC is Baofeng Tech." Yeah, and I'm like, "Okay, I'm glad we caught up today. Thanks, man."
Can't argue with
Yeah.
stupid.
Gosh, yeah, people still don't get that because people were coming by my last tri-band Baofeng video I posted, and they're like, "Oh, the BTEC's a much better radio." I was like, "Yeah, it is. It's 3 times the price." I was like, "Yeah, but why did Baofeng copy this and why did they rename their own radio?" And I'm like, BTEC and Baofeng Tech or Baofeng and Baofeng Tech are not the same company, guys. Baofeng Tech is in freaking North Carolina. Baofeng is in China, not the same company. So BTEC, Baofeng Tech, short for Baofeng Tech, not the same company as Baofeng. Just
Well,
not. Look it up.
Well, they have a ton of different radios that are made by
They do.
various manufacturers, right?
I dare you to
And-
find a Bale Fang that looks like the BTEC 6x2.
right. You
You're
won't.
not
It's
going to
good.
find it.
Well,
Yeah,
what's
and
funny
so
is
hold on one second. For those of you that are paying attention at home, that's one Miller Lite down. We've got 5 more to go. So that,
Oh, okay.
that we
Right.
timestamped the
I got to
video.
go eat dinner. I can't be here that long.
All right, what were you going to
So-
say, Ape?
heck, I don't remember.
Well, that's fine. I mind this time, so you're good.
Well, to answer Sean's question,
Yeah.
my go-to would be the Anytone 878 Plus. It has some features that I own a 6x2. I love it. I love the fact that you can interchange code plugs between. I have a 868, I have a 6x2, I have an 878, and I have an 878 Plus. I have all of those radios. And with firmware updates, they're almost all, I mean, they were always very similar with one another, but with the firmware updates now, they're almost exactly the same. That's why I was
Sure.
asking if the 6x2 had Bluetooth. The cool thing about Bluetooth is the other day I was driving out to my hunting lease and I Bluetoothed my 878 Plus to my car stereo. And I set the radio and I clipped the radio to my sun visor over my head. And it has a Bluetooth microphone also, but I didn't have that with me at the time, but I could have had a Bluetooth microphone right here. So, and I had my hotspot running. So when a call came over the radio, I heard it through my car speakers.
Nice.
And if you have a mobile radio, which I took all my radios out of my truck because I'm reconfiguring my whole mobile station right now. So at this point in time, I don't have a mobile radio. But if you have a mobile radio, then you have an external speaker. That's all good. If you have an HT, it's harder to hear an HT in the car. And that one will Bluetooth to your car stereo, and you can hear it a lot better. Additionally, you know, when I'm sitting in the hunting stand and I've got my radio clipped over here to the edge of the stand, and I've got my Bluetooth headset so that I don't have any cords running back and forth. I really like the feature of the Bluetooth. The Kenwood D74 Bluetooth radio has Bluetooth in the radio, and I've used it for the last 2 or 3 years, and it works wonderfully well in situations where I need it to. And I really like the Bluetooth feature of the 878, the Kenwood D74. A couple of the older Motorola radios have it as well. So that's one reason I'd pick the Anytone. But I think, Ape, I don't remember how much the BTEC is today. The Anytone's about $240, and I want to say the BTEC's around $180.
Yeah.
So
I think it might have gone up a little bit with some of the trade stuff, but I agree with you. Like for me, Bluetooth is not important.
yeah.
So it's not a must-have. But I was talking to somebody, and they use a little Bluetooth earplug, and they keep their radio on their side, and they have a little button that they put on their finger to do push to talk. And they said that they use that all the time when they're out and about and walking around. And so it definitely has its use case. There are Bluetooth modules that you can buy for this that you plug in the side, but then, it's a janky solution. And
Sure.
You can put that on any radio, actually.
Yeah.
With the
I think
cool.
for me, it's a matter of like a waterproof radio, and I know if I'm just getting into it, maybe I want that, but I like the waterproof capability. I like a durable, rugged radio, so I'm about to test the HD1 to see if it'll actually survive 30 minutes underwater. I guess we'll see. Yeah,
Awesome.
we'll see what happens. I'm kind of nervous.
Yeah.
It seems like a solid radio, but if it does pass that test, it might be my go-to. We'll see. I mean, not just for DMR, but
For
analog as well.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah, it feels the weight to it. It's really nice. So I guess it all depends on your needs.
The the HD1 and I like it. I'm glad. How do you say it? Redivus.
Right,
They sent this to me for evaluation, but a lot of people have had problems where the display cable comes off, and then you got to crack the radio open to plug it back in.
Oh,
and
nice. Oh, sorry.
Another thing is that the real-time clock battery is in line with its normal power supply. So if you don't charge it regularly, you'll lose your firmware settings.
Oh,
Not that big of a deal, but it's a pain in the ass. And so you would lose your time and stuff like that, and some of your display settings. I really like the radio, but I think that the HD2 has some opportunities for
I'm looking forward to trying that.
nice. Yeah. And I suppose if you had to open the radio up to reseat the display cable or the ribbon, you might lose your ability for the waterproofing then too, so that,
if you don't snap it back together,
man, that you got to be careful with that kind of stuff. And that is kind of a disappointment. The HD2 might be kind of neat though.
But I really do like the HD1. It's a good radio, and I would never
Oh.
discourage somebody from buying one.
I know we're probably running close on time here, but what I will say is, when the MD380 came out, it was a UHF only radio, and it did DMR, and it was great for what it was then, and it's still pretty great now, especially because DMR is primarily UHF, at least around here. But there's no reason not to get yourself into something that's dual band, VHF, UHF with DMR capabilities, in this day and age, in this time, for sure. You're going to be much happier with that capability
in these crazy times.
These crazy times,
Well, gentlemen,
Again.
I will say thank you very much for coming on the channel and talking about what DMR is, why DMR is good for you. And with that, we will sign off. Thanks for being on.
All right, guys.
Thanks
Have a good one. Thank you so much.
All right. Well, thanks to you and all that stuff.
Yeah, I am going to go eat dinner.